Welcome back, everyone. This is Mary Nunley, one of your co hosts for the Transformational Online Learning Summit. And today I have with me the fabulous Valerie Martinelli. And I met Valerie through an acquaintance of mine, Connie Whitman, who's also one of our expert speakers. And I really thought that Valerie was going to bring a lot of extra value because not only is she an expert in mindset, but she also works with people that are transitioning jobs, whether by choice or by the economy. So I'm going to let Valerie introduce herself, and I think you're going to really enjoy this conversation. So, Valerie, take it away.
Hi, Mary. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome.
My name is Valerie. I am a career and leadership coach, and I work a lot with mid level and senior level executives, helping them advance their careers and find new jobs and seek out new, advance in their salaries between 15 to 60,000 on their job offers.
Wow, that's pretty
Yeah,
incredible. So, I definitely want to ask you a little bit more about the services you offer at the end of your
sure.
presentation, because I think that's something that a lot of folks are interested in, especially right now with a lot of job shuffling happening. But I wanna dive right into the conversation because this is something that just fascinates me, and as we were saying just before the call started, many folks that I know were just laid off from their jobs at a large tech company that I used to work at, and it's often unexpected. So how does a positive mindset fit into that, both when you're searching for a new career and you're currently employed, but then also when you've been, let's say, maybe unexpectedly let go? How do you keep that positive mindset and how does that affect your job search?
So a mindset is really, really important in your job search. A lot of people tend to focus on the technical pieces, the resume, the LinkedIn, the cover letter. And don't get me wrong, those are all important moving parts. But with a poor mindset, you're going to have an uphill battle with your job search. The way we look at it, the way I approach it, is your thoughts are like a mirror. And that was something a wise coach taught me a long time ago. And I know with layoffs, it's really hard because then people tend to walk away feeling bad about themselves, thinking, "Why me? You know, why was I targeted? Did I do something wrong? Was there something with my performance, etc.?" Something like that. And I understand, and there's some time I think you can kind of sit with that and reevaluate and think and feel a little bad. Then you have to really pick yourself up and say, "What is it that I'm going to do? This is an opportunity." And I think that that's a good way to look at it. Is it an opportunity and not something negative? Because this is where mindset will really come in. We want you to look at it as an opportunity, as a growth opportunity, and not something to sit there and, lack of a better word, sulk and
Okay.
just feel really bad about yourself, because that is where you're going to start to really bleed and start to have some problems. Because now, if you think about this, your thoughts are like a mirror, those are going to start to come into your actions. So if you're doing an interview and someone says, "Oh, wow, that person doesn't really think too highly of themselves," or, that person doesn't really seem too sure of themselves, because it's starting to come through. You are portraying this, whether you realize it or not, or it's going to come through in your results as well, because then you won't be putting the effort in, because you're going to think, who's going to want to hire me?
Oh, wow. So that is powerful. If
It
you
is powerful.
if you could just, like, let's say that I was in that funk, what would be one thing that I could do to help me start shifting that mindset? What do you recommend?
So I think after you've kind of shaken yourself out of it and given yourself that little bit of time, I would start to create a routine for yourself. And I find this is the biggest thing with people who end up losing a job or putting a job and then they're unemployed, is that now they have no routine, right? And then they feel like they have no purpose either. Because we in America here put a lot of our purpose into our work.
Mhm.
And whether that's good or that's bad, we can negate that till the end of the day, but we do it, right? Now we have to start to give ourselves some new purpose. And think about this in the sense of, Well, my job search can give me some purpose because now I have an opportunity to grow and to learn and to find a company who's more aligned to who and what I am right now and what my values are. So start to create a routine for yourself. Think about what can you do to clear your mindset. For some people it's meditation, for some people it's journaling, for some people it's exercise. What works for each person is going to be a little bit different, so it might look a little different, but you have to start each day by creating that routine, whether it's getting up and journaling with a cup of coffee, or whether it's getting up and going for a walk before it gets too hot outside. You have to take that and create that for yourself, and then start to think too, what are my values now? What is it that I'm looking for? Something I always have all my clients do is make a list of what I call non-negotiables. So those things that you want out of a role, or those values you want out of a company, that you're not going to negotiate away on now. Make that list. Think about those things because now they're part of your purpose. They're part of who you are.
Wow, that's powerful. And I think, again, when you're in that situation, especially of an unexpected job loss,
Hmm.
taking the time to do this. But I think also if you're searching for a new career, having that list of non-negotiables, because I've seen so many people in my career chase the salary, but then they're just as unhappy in their new job as they were in their last job because they were just
Yep.
chasing salary and not really thinking about, what do I want from the job? What lights me up? I was having this conversation with a friend the other day. It's like, well, what lights you up? Like, what gets you excited? I know that we can't 100% of every day do the things that make us most excited, but if you don't get any of that in your job, then you're going to
Hmm.
get frustrated and quit. So it's just like, it's,
You'll be right back to square one.
yeah. Oh, this is
Obviously,
so
it's
good.
never going to be 100% perfect, like you said, Mary, because that's unrealistic. But if it has to be something that lights us up, right? And then how do I align that with what I know or what I've done? So what I can bring to the table. And then think about aligning that with all of those other moving parts, the resume, the LinkedIn, the cover letter, so that you can start to portray that into those things and align that. And then, showing those things can then help, because honestly, I what I find is when people say, "Okay, well now, it's the next day. I got laid off yesterday. I have to start writing my resume today." Now you're bleeding all those negative thoughts onto that piece of paper,
Ah, okay.
because you not only haven't you taken the time to process, and you don't have to spend like a month, maybe just a few days or a week, but not only have you not taken the time to process, but now you're taking all of this, well, I don't know what I want. I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know what I've done. I don't know what I have to offer. And everything that you think is negative about yourself, and it's on the piece of paper.
Wow.
And yeah. And now, how far is that going to get you into an interview? Is it going to get you an interview? And then what happens when you get into an interview?
Yeah, it just sort of continues to bleed over. So I guess
Yeah,
the same by the same token, do you also need to take a step back on things like LinkedIn if you're in that negative mindset? Because and I guess that's a question for you because I've seen, again, seeing a lot of this as people's job situations are shifting. There's a sadness, which I think is expectable. Hey, I was laid
that's
off or
normal.
I left my job. But then at what point do people need to start thinking about, well, how do I shift my online persona also? And I know fake it till you make it sometimes isn't the right thing, but if I'm continuously saying, "Oh, woe is me, I'm never gonna get a job," and I'm on LinkedIn or Facebook or wherever, is that scaring off potential people because then now they're getting a sense of like, "Oh, Mary's not the kind of person that we wanna work with," or is it acceptable?
I think that there's that initial, I lost my job, I'm open to work type of post on LinkedIn that's
Mhm.
acceptable. But then I say, step back from the keyboard a little bit, right? Like, and put your phone down a little bit, put the iPad down. You really don't want to keep making those posts that sound, "Oh, woe is me." I don't have a problem with the open to work stuff. I know there's some people that say the open to work is bad. I don't believe that. Open
Okay.
to work is good, but don't continue to bleed those negative thoughts into your posts or into your tweets or whatever, because then I think, yeah, now you're starting to show them a sense of your self-esteem. So if you have poor self-esteem coming through, you're showing them a piece of this. And then they
Ah,
might start to think, is this the person that I'm hiring? Are they going to get along with everyone? Um, is he or she going to be able to complete the work? Um, are they going to meet deadlines? Is this actually a person that I want running a team? That's the other piece too. Because now if you have someone that's supposed to be a people manager,
right.
you have to think intelligently, how do those skills come off too? Because if you're running a team of X number of people, they have to think, if you can't self manage, how
Mhm.
can you people manage?
Oh, that's a really good point. And I think for me, when I've looked on sites for potential employees and stuff, the other thing I look at, and I'd love your take on this, is if there is something negative or there is kind of like this, I'm kind of down in the dumps, but then asking for help or offering a solution as well, because then it shows me that that person is self-aware and is starting to think about things. It's like, "Look, guys, I'm really in a dump. It's been 2 months," and I'm seeing this a lot with teachers that are trying to transition to other fields, and there's a glut of potential employees. "I'm really down in the dumps. I've been trying. Here's the things that I've been doing. Does anybody have any suggestions?" Or is that considered a more positive mindset than someone who's just like, "Oh, forget about it. I'm never gonna get a job. I'm just gonna give up."
The first one to me is more positive. The asking for help, the saying, I'm not doing so great with this. Because to me, that's when someone comes to me or someone else, right, for help. That's what they're doing. They're saying, listen, I'm not succeeding. I'm not succeeding at this on my own. And that's okay, right? Sometimes it's almost akin to when someone needs therapy, right?
Mhm.
You're not doing okay on your own. That's okay to say. We have to take that stigma away from anybody or anything, whatever kind of help it is, and say, listen, you need help? That's fine. I think it's the asking for help, like you said, Mary, that self awareness of knowing that you're not succeeding, you're not doing well at this on your own. Maybe there's something about this that you don't know that you're not aware of. um, you know, you need to ask for help, and that's fine. But the poor woe is me, I stink, no one wants to hire me, blah, blah, blah type of post, no one wants to read those. I hate to say it. They just drag everyone down. And
Yeah, no,
I'm
I
not
agree.
saying
I
that to
mean,
be
it's
mean, but really, they're not helpful and they're not helping you. If you're at that point, you just need to ask for help.
I
And I
like
know it's
that.
really hard, but
Yeah, and I know that social media has this
of
perception of
course.
everybody is always just, lollipops and unicorns and roses, but I think there's a difference between woe is me, like what I call the Eeyore kind of mentality, like everything is always bad versus, hey, things are not great in my world. Here's what I'm doing and here's where I'm stumbling. And I think you get a better response from that as well because
Yep.
it also shows prospective employers that if I were to hire you, you're not a know-it-all and you're humble enough to ask for
But you're
help if you
solution
need it and you're
oriented.
solution oriented. So I love it. I love it. So a couple other
Yeah.
questions, and we've talked a lot about this already in terms of like the mindset affecting your success. But are there some specific steps that you advise job seekers to take to help them manage their mindset? We've kind of, danced around the edges of this with some things. But if I were to say, "Hey, Valerie, I'm down in the dumps. It's been 2 months. I'm a teacher. I really don't want to go back into the classroom. I haven't had as many people, interviewing me as I had hoped. And this is something that I'm seeing fairly often in my field. What can they do to maintain that positivity, even if they're going back to, let's say, a job that they don't really want to go back to while they're continuing their job search?
So besides the routine, I would say then seek out the help of a professional. If you're not getting the response that you need from your resume, or you're not getting the response that you need for interviews, then think about why. It's time to then, because when I tell people the ROI is no longer there, you have to think about why. What is happening there? What is on that piece of paper or what is on that screen? Think about your resume, think about your LinkedIn. Maybe there's a mistake that you made. And it could be a technical mistake too. It may not necessarily be that you bled your mindset onto it. It could be technical. I have a lot of clients that come forward and say, listen, I don't know a darn thing about applicant tracking systems. Help, I'm not getting through.
Ah, okay.
So it could be technical as well. So if you're not getting to that point, then I think it's time to open up a conversation and at least talk to someone just to see. And it is what it is, right? Like at least then you know.
Right.
And then the decision is yours. You know what you want to do with that information is ultimately up to you. You want to take action on it, you want to do something with it, fine. You want to stay sane, well then you know.
Ri
But
No, that's good, and then I think so I guess to continue with that thought, when does somebody, typically go, "Maybe now it's time to get some help?"
So what I usually when clients come to me for this is when they've usually sent out many, many resumes or
Okay.
applied on LinkedIn many, many times, have gotten rejection after rejection after rejection, or heard absolutely nothing for months on end. Because that's when we can start to say, wait a minute, let's take a look at this resume. And maybe it's a technical problem. Maybe it's the
Okay.
technical aspect. And maybe that's part of the issue here.
Okay, so it does sound like too then that perseverance is part of that mindset that also needs to be developed
Yes.
because I know as a culture we're very much like that instant gratification and it's not like it was when I was 16 years old and I applied for my first job at McDonald's and it's like, "Great, we're going to hire you because, we needed somebody and you walked in the door and you're a teenager." Today there are a lot more people applying for perhaps fewer or different jobs as well. As chatting with a client the other day and they had over 100 applications for one position. And
Yep.
so that's what I'm hearing more and more from people also. So it's not as if, "Oh, I sent my resume to one company, why didn't I get an interview?" It's got to be more of a this is and I'm asking for, I guess, your expert opinion on this. This is more of a long-term plan and strategy. It's not, "Oh, I'm just gonna send my resume to 2 jobs and surely I'll get something." It might be 10, 50, 100, and then maybe you go, "Okay, no nibbles. Now's the time I need to ask for help." Am I kinda accurately summing that up?
Yeah. Yeah, you are. Because if you just do one we don't know. We don't know what happens with one. One could reject you just because maybe you weren't a good fit. Eh, that happens anyways in this process. I hate
Mhm.
to say it, but it's just part of the game. So we don't know. It may be even two. But when you start to I see say like 10, 15, 20, now what are you putting your time into? Are you putting your time into something that's a whole bunch of rejections? Is that what you want to put your time into? I don't think so. I mean, I know we're an instant gratification society, but there's also an ROI factor here.
Right.
People only have so many hours in a day.
No, that's really powerful, and I guess that other piece, tying it back together as we're getting close to wrapping up our time, is that when you think about mindset, that also is gonna impact your interviews. Like, typically in my experience with corporate jobs, I might be interviewed by a recruiter first to see like, okay, her resume looked good. Let's see if she's meets the minimum qualifications for the position. And then it
Yep,
might be a second interview. And in some companies that I've interviewed with, it could be as many as, excuse me, 4 or 5 interviews where it's
yep,
like, now you're going to interview with the team. Now you're going to interview with this person. Now you're going to interview with that, which that's a whole different conversation for another day. But how do you adjust your mindset for that process too? Because it's no longer, "Oh, I just talked to the manager and I got hired." Now you have to set your mindset of this might be a 3 or 4 maybe even 5 interview process.
And I think that's all the more reason to have the stronger mindset, right? To build that resilience, to know that you need to possibly work with somebody to help you do that, to build this and know it's a longer term game. The short term game is just getting your resume in and saying, okay, I've gotten through this far. I have not gotten a rejection. Maybe now I've just gone through the phone screen, like you said, and now I've gotten through 1 to 2 interviews, but now I need to go the long-term game here. I'm investing way more time into this company, but now I need to think long term. What's my mindset? Do I want to actually go forward with this company? Are we on the same page, first of all? Second of all, then thinking about yourself too. What are your goals? What are your values? Are you aligned? So is this something you actually want to continue to put your time into? And no, this is all the more reason why putting that routine in place is important, because it's going to pay you back. Because
Wow.
if you let that go, it'll start to show, because this is now a long-term game. This is not something short-term that you're just going to get hired in 2 weeks. Those I remember those days. They're gone.
Mhm. Well, I remember reading somewhere where the advice that was given if you've been laid off or looking for a job is to treat it like a full-time job and spend 30
Yeah.
to 35, 40 hours a week actually doing things to help you find the job and not just doing busy work, because I think sometimes we also fall into that trap. Even as an entrepreneur, sometimes I fall into the busy work trap instead of the productivity trap.
And that's the other thing. You have to make sure that you're actually doing all the other things. Are you networking? Whether it's online or in person, really doesn't matter. But are you networking? You have to make sure that you're doing that too. Because if you're just trying to do everything by submitting your resume or applying through LinkedIn, what about your network? A lot of jobs are through connections or people
Mhm.
who know people. So, are you doing all of the other things to help keep you productive?
That
When you're just doing all of the click, 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 I know a lot of people who love easy apply. Uh,
right.
Recruiters are not a huge fan, but that's something that's just, it's something you can do in between Netflix. I hate to say it, but
Right.
it, and it's not a good habit. So are you doing all of the other things?
No, that's good. And I think the other piece of it too is depending on what age you are and when was the last
Hmm.
time that you applied for a job. Things
Hmm.
have changed too. Like if I was
Yeah,
a long-term employee at a company for 10, 15, 20 years, the whole job search process has changed dramatically than perhaps for somebody who's just like every year, every 2 years, they're looking for that next better opportunity. And so they may be a little bit more skilled at that than someone who's like, "Oh, I thought this was my forever home." And then they find out that it's not. So I think that might also be a time when you would want to seek some expert help because
I
the
agree. And
things
that's
have changed.
absolutely, and this is where we run the gamut with the ages of our clients, because we've had people who are, oh, I was there 15, 20 years, and then, we reorganized after COVID, and now we laid off.
Right.
That, unfortunately, that did happen. And unfortunately, there's some now, like you said, some tech companies that are laying off now. It
Yeah,
is
I'm
what it is. We can't change the situation, but we just go with it.
right.
So, I mean, you're seeing some younger workers that are now losing jobs. We saw some older ones that already lost jobs. Eh,
Yeah, I mean, it just is, like you said,
It is.
it's neither good nor bad, it's just what's happening in the
It's
moment,
just what's
and
happening in the world. So we just continue to go with it and just continue to teach people and train them on what to do and what they could do to better themselves to go forward. So how they can find what it is that they want so they walk away happy.
I love it. Valerie, this has been just a phenomenal conversation on so many different levels. So my final question for you, which is never always final because I always have more, but how could somebody find you if they wanted to work with you? If they're in that position of either a career transition by choice or a career transition by somebody else's choice. If they found this conversation helpful or just like, "Ooh, she's talking my language." How could they get in touch with you?
I would say email would be best.
Okay.
in which case my email is Valerie at askvmc.com.
Excellent. So, any last words of wisdom for the audience before we wrap up today?
Oh, my words of wisdom are always don't give up on your goals. If you're not meeting them, then just find somebody to help you to meet them. Don't give up. There's always a way to get there.
I love it. So,
It just requires a plan.
I like that. That's the thing. It's a goal. It's a dream without a plan, becomes a goal when you have a plan because now
You
you've
just need
got
a
steps
plan and
that
some
you can take.
patience. That's all.
I like it. Well, everyone, thank you so much for joining us today. And again, Valerie is your go-to person for career help and mindset. If you need her, we'll also have all of her contact information in the summit so that you can find her. So thanks, Valerie, for being my guest,
Thank you for having me.
and we'll see everybody soon.